let me just start off by saying that I may actually get dehydrated during today's video just from the sheer amount of saliva that I'm about to spit at you guys. As a matter of fact, I might actually have somebody inject an IV directly into my vein because I'm worked up, okay? I'm about to Batista bomb my body pillow because I don't know what's going on, okay? I was very hyped for this trailer. I actually, interestingly enough, I was at work. I saw the trailer pop up, but for me, it's an event. You know, I had to come home, sit down, relax, just chill, drink some a nice cup of iced tea, and watch the trailer for like the next couple of hours. I literally was gonna sit there and make an event out of it, and watch the trailer maybe like 20 times on repeat. I was going to analyze every single frame and just get super hyped because I felt a similar feeling, a similar sensation for a brand new day, at least when I saw the trailer pop up. Unfortunately, when I got home and actually watched the trailer, I'm massively disappointed. I have no idea what's going on here. So look, we do get a closer look at what appears to be an incursion. We do get a closer look at some of the characters that are going to be featured, but the trailer is essentially just a bunch of random Marvel characters that are part of the MCU meeting each other. There's a sequence where like Gambit, which by the way, Tatum is coming back to reprise his role as Gambit. He's supposed to be facing off against Shang-Chi, which is really cool. But the battle just doesn't make any real sense to me, and it's taking place in like a very small, very like condensed staircase. And then we get a couple of other sequences, like we get Yelena taking on the Fox Universe Mystique, which was kind of interesting. Nothing too intense. There's another sequence of like M'Baku shaking hands with the Thing, which, by the way, the Thing is this giant, is this tiny little dude. Like M'Baku looks giant next to him, which makes absolutely no sense. I don't remember the Thing being that small. Like, I'm 5'10" on a good day, and I feel like I could dunk on that guy. What's going on? And he's so wide. He's short and just like incredibly wide, which just doesn't make any sense. I was kind of hoping that at some point the Thing would square off with the Hulk, but this dude is just so small. I think Vanessa Kirby's Invisible Woman is actually slightly taller than him, which again, I just don't really understand. We get Letitia Wright reprising her role as obviously Black Panther. She's taken on that mantle. And then we see a couple of other characters kind of scattered throughout. We get to see Cyclops, which, by the way, he's coming out in like more classic color tones, even though I don't think he's quite what we expected. There should be a lot more yellow on his suit, but I think it's as close as you're going to get to a comic book accurate representation, because you're never going to get those really bright, like vibrant blues and yellows. Obviously, his gloves, his underwear, or the underwear padding is just not going to be yellow enough. So I think it's kind of like comic book colors or animated 97 colors, but like matted, so it's a little bit more realistic, a little bit more gritty. Personally, if you're going to do it, just do it. Go with the blues and yellows. Unfortunately, they're kind of not going all out. They're holding back a little bit, which is a little bit frustrating. But the list goes on and on. There are a ton of these sequences where it's just, it's a couple of characters shaking hands or saying what's up to each other. And then it's a couple of sequences of them just fighting. But everything seems very like self-encapsulated. I think most of the sequences take place at like Doctor Strange's crib or at the Avengers Tower, which, again, this is supposed to be like this big giant epic culmination of everything that we've seen for like the past, 12, 13, 15 years. And unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be that. The largest scale scene that we see is probably the one where M'Baku is shaking hands with the Thing, where they're finally meeting each other. And I feel like everything is just going to be the most copy-paste that we've ever seen. It's going to be two characters that don't like each other, they fight, and then at the end, they put, like a SpongeBob Band-Aid, they shake hands and like go about their ways, and then eventually they team up. But you see this consistently. Like, I don't think Gambit and Shang-Chi are going to be at each other's throat the entire movie. It's just like an opening sequence. We're going to get the same thing with Yelena and Mystique, and just the list goes on and on. I just don't understand why they're going to go through that entire trope. I mean, they could do something a little bit unique, something that's way more intriguing. Obviously, these characters have to interact and they have to meet, and, you know, they have to get to know each other a little bit more. But the whole idea of them like starting off right off the bat wanting to punch each other in the face, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know they're from different universes, they're from alternate realities, and now they're meeting, and they may feel a little bit threatened, especially if you're like the Fantastic Four, who, you know, just took on Galactus, and there's a lot of hostility there, and we don't know exactly what all of the other Marvel characters have been going through. So you could kind of understand why some of these characters are reacting this way. But again, maybe they're saving this for the actual movie, but the set pieces feel extremely small. I feel like all of the budget is going into Robert Downey Jr.'s pocket, which, by the way, has already been confirmed. He's going to be on screen. Like, his actual facial structure is going to be in front of the camera for like a few minutes during the entire movie. Now, that's unconfirmed, right? Like, we don't know if that's 100% accurate, but according to a lot of rumors, that's what we're apparently going to get from Robert Downey. So what it feels like to me is it's going to be everybody meeting each other. It's going to be like 60%, you know, head-to-head battles. There's actually a sequence in there where Mr. Fantastic or Reed Richards is actually holding back Falcon, or the new Captain America. He's kind of holding him back, and he's allowing Yelena to go at Mystique. I don't understand why that's actually taking place. I don't understand why Reed Richards would do that, but I'm assuming, you know, once we get into the film, we're going to get a better explanation to this. All in all, I'm really disappointed. I didn't get those chills. I didn't get the goosebumps. You know what I mean? That's exactly what I felt with Infinity War, Endgame, A Brand New Day, No Way Home, all of the big heavy hitter MCU films, even Fantastic Four, Thunderbolts. Like, I definitely got chills looking at those trailers, even if some of them did not necessarily live up to the hype. I thought the trailers themselves were able to kind of encapsulate what the movie was going to be about, even if maybe they hyped it up a little bit too much, but at least it got you excited for the project. In this particular case, I didn't really get that. At the end, we get to see Captain America, which we knew was going to reprise, or Chris Evans, who we knew was going to reprise his role as Captain America. And unfortunately, I didn't feel anything either. The dude looks like life has beat him up. Forget about Thanos. Like, life beat the heck out of him. He looks like he's a middle-aged dude that's about to hit up like his local grocery store and buy diapers and toilet paper. Like, he's giving off like me vibes, basically, and you definitely don't want that in a movie. But I mean, I don't understand exactly what they're going for. Everything that the trailer was leading up to is Thor going at Doomsday, and then Doomsday just basically like brushes him off, which I thought is a pretty interesting concept and idea, but that should have been saved for the movie. Why wouldn't you save it? You know, why wouldn't you build all that up? It kind of felt like that battle sequence where the Guardians and Spider-Man and Iron Man go at Thanos on his home planet. I thought, you know, where they truly realize that they're completely outmatched. I felt like that's what the movie itself should have built up towards, not the actual trailer. You're giving up a great battle sequence. Like, maybe you built it up to feel like, hey, maybe these characters, maybe all of them put together are able to match up against Doomsday. But unfortunately, you give that away in the trailer. Like, we now know that Thor can't even put a dent in Doctor Doom, and I feel like that could have been, you know, better served as kind of like a climax to the battle sequence against Doomsday. So all around, I'm really frustrated. I don't know exactly what's going on in this trailer. Now, there are, as I said, there are certain outfits and looks that I really liked. Red Guardian, or David Harbour, is in the background in one of these sequences, and he's wearing that ridiculous like bouncer looking outfit, which I thought was really funny from the end of the Thunderbolts film. We obviously get a closer look at Gambit, who already mentioned. He kind of looks like he did in Wolverine and Deadpool, but still, it's really cool to see Tatum reprise his role as Gambit. But all around, and then obviously we get a closer look at Thor with the sleeveless look, which we already knew was going to be a thing from the Love and Thunder film. And obviously Chris Evans reprising his role as Captain America. I mean, it's all very exciting, in and of itself, like these tiny little tidbits that are sprinkled throughout the film. But the end result is just not what I wanted. Like, honestly, if you were going to bring back the X-Men, just bring them back. You know what I mean? Like, just give them those really, bright, ridiculous colors. I know that they're trying to go for a very matte and very toned down atmosphere for this film. It feels like there's something that's looming. It feels very depressing. You can definitely feel from the aura of the film that, things are going to go south very quickly. Things are going to be very bleak, very similar to Infinity War, though, right? Like, I think they're going to play off of that. A bunch of bad things are going to happen. A bunch of characters are going to die eventually. I feel like. And by the way, a lot of the characters that are featured on or during the trailer, I feel like some of those characters are being featured for a very specific reason. It feels like some of those characters might eventually be killed off. We've heard rumors of, for example, Ant-Man potentially being killed off and a few others. So it's going to get really interesting. Look, personally, I'm not going to kid myself, and I'm not going to try to fool anybody. I'm going to be there day one, okay? There's nothing is going to stop me from watching this movie, but that doesn't mean that this trailer did it for me. It all seems like the set pieces are incredibly small. Sometimes these sequences are going to feature two different characters battling, which that's just not something that we're used to from an Avengers film. Like anytime we got an Avengers film, it felt grand, it felt huge, it felt epic, and that's just not what I'm getting from Avengers Doomsday. Perhaps they should have saved all of that money that they used on Robert Downey Jr. and actually spent it on the budget for this movie, because it's frustrating. Look, all in all, this is just a trailer. It's just there to kind of get us involved in the project. It's to get the hype going, and maybe potentially they can make some moves to really bring this movie together. But let's not kid ourselves. We're only 4 months away, and the amount of adjustments that they could possibly make to the movie are very minimal. Like, the movie is basically done. They're probably in the post-editing phase, and there's really nothing else that they can do to the film. Maybe touch it up here and there. A lot of the CGI moments do seem a little bit rough around the edges, and I'm sure they're going to go in there and clean it up. I think the real question that is going to be raised over the next few months is, where are these other characters? Why aren't they being featured in this film? There is the potential that this film doesn't include all of the huge MCU characters. Like, we don't get a closer look at Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. There's no Deadpool in this film, which is kind of an interesting choice. No Spider-Man. We know that something could potentially happen to Hulk. Now, in terms of the X-Men, I do feel like a bunch of other X-Men characters are going to be featured here. The only reason that they're not is probably that they're saving it for the actual film, or they're going to show it as a teaser later on at San Diego Comic-Con. I think once they actually have a full-on panel, what I'm thinking is going to happen is they're actually going to have the actors come on stage, but a lot of the actors that are actually on stage are not featured in the actual live-action trailer. That's just going to give you like... it's going to basically insinuate that those actors are in those films without really, telling you outright. So anyways, I just really quickly wanted to give you guys my thoughts, my personal perspective on the trailer itself. I'm really disappointed. There's a little bit of excitement still there, but I expected a lot more from this trailer, and it just doesn't feel like this big, giant, grand event that we're usually used to when it comes down to Avengers films. But again, this is just my personal opinion, my personal take. I'm very curious to see what all of you guys have to say. Let me know your thoughts down below. And as always, stay safe out there. Enjoy the hobby, watch movies, read comic books, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.